I'm Dale Smith for Learning Politics, and the last week has been dominated by a lot of talk of Justin Trudeau's future, in part precipitated because of comments made by a certain senator, even though this senator doesn't really have the kind of political network that one would assume would generate this kind of talk. Nevertheless, his contention is that the Liberal Party needs to have a conversation about whether they want Trudeau to remain on as leader before the next election, and that they should take the next few weeks to have those kinds of conversations so that they have time to have a new leader in place and have their feet beneath them before the next election happens. Part of the problem with this contention, however, is that there is no formal mechanism within the Liberal Party for the party itself to oust the leader. The only way that a leadership review happens, according to their constitution, is after a general election where they don't win. And it's actually the same with the Conservatives, and the NDP, meanwhile, does have leadership reviews every biennial convention, meaning every 2 years. And Jagmeet Singh just recently passed his own review vote just last month. Nevertheless, there is also talk of, the Garbage Reform Act, where the Conservatives have actually used this in the past to oust Aaron O'Toole as the leader, although they didn't really need the mechanisms within the act to do that. The caucus could have gotten together and voted him out regardless. But the Liberals have not signed on to any of the Reform Act proposals, so they don't have the formal mechanism that way. But the caucus could, if they really wanted to, get together, vote him out, and say we want a new leader and to start that process. The problem there, however, is that there doesn't really seem to be that kind of an appetite. Yes, there is grousing within the caucus, but a lot of that has to do with Trudeau's staff. A lot of the unhappiness is within the people who are closest to Trudeau and not with Trudeau necessarily himself. And that was one of the things that was really a sticking point at the most recent caucus retreat in London, Ontario. And we'll see if Trudeau takes any lessons from that at all. Nevertheless, the other thing is that there's no obvious successor to Trudeau who could successfully take on Poilievre in a convention or in an election. And there does seem to be this feeling within the Liberals that while they may be unhappy with Trudeau and he may be getting to the end of his best before date, they're really not sure who else could do the job at this point. So they are likely to stick with him regardless. Nevertheless, I think it's important that we remember that we have gotten away from the formalized principles where the caucus could formally choose and fire leaders when they needed to. And that's left us with much more centralized control in the leader's office and all of the things associated with that. So while this conversation about Trudeau's future is happening, there really isn't any way that this would happen in any kind of a formal process, and it would take a caucus revolt to see him ousted. For Learning Politics, I'm Dale Smith.